Hi, everyone. My name is Haley,
And this is Laura.
and welcome to the BodyPod. Welcome, Dr. Andy Galpin, to the BodyPod. We are thrilled to have this conversation with you today. You have been on my list for a really long time, so this is super special for me to have you here.
Well, you guys have been on my list for a long time too, so equally excited.
Well, here we are. Andy, I want you to just take a quick second. I'm super curious. We were just talking about this, Laura and I, before you jumped on. And I want to know, how did you, like, once you were getting your PhD, how did you go from here to like Andrew Huberman and having this podcast? It feels like it's been fun watching your career just kind of jump up the ranks. So what did that look like?
Oh, geez, what a question. It's probably not that different from your average, overnight 20-year success, right?
Oh,
Where, it looks like you have these big jumps, but it really wasn't. Andrew specifically, I've known for a very long time. So
yeah.
I knew him before he had any social media presence. We'd worked on studies together, and I helped him a lot when he wanted to get going in the public space. So you have these weird things where you're like, oh my gosh, how did you get the attention of Andrew Huberman? I'm like, I didn't have to. Like, I've known him for forever, right? Like, same thing. I could name you 100 people in the industry like that, where you met as undergrad students or you whatever, and then they turned into having something. So it's really that. I started as graduating college. I was working with professional athletes already right out I got out of college, and I could tell you how I got exactly there. I could tell you any of these inflection points, and they're probably not going to be the stories that you think, right? They're not the I had a rich uncle or my cousin played in the NFL, or it wasn't that. It was just grinding consistently, taking 100,000 shots at a time, saying yes to everything, trying to over produce and over deliver every time. And then when you do that 1,000 times, one of them ends up being a tiny, tiny break. And then you do it 1,000 more times, and then that next one ends up being a tiny, tiny, tinier break. And you just start stacking those breaks, and eventually, you get there. And so it is a lot of that is a lot of goodwill and a lot of good overproduction, and then of course just loads of luck. So I could happy to go into exact examples if you want there, but I'm not sure how long of an answer you want, so I'll stop there.
So if we look at elite athletes, what are the similarities, and we obviously know the differences for someone that's maybe like midlife versus an elite athlete. Now there's obviously a lot, but is there any crossover on how you would train someone? Clearly there's a lot of differences, but anything that would cross over there.
Yeah, it's almost the exact same actually. The differences you're referring to are the honestly the really obvious ones. So easy example would be if I'm training not that I ever would, but let's say, for example, I was helping my wife train. There's a 0% chance she would ever listen to me, right? So let's just assume a theoretical fake world where she would listen to my training advice. So you have a 44-year-old woman, and at the same time, I have a 35-year-old professional UFC fighter, right? So male, female fighter, let's just put them on the thing. If I handed you their programs, you would not be able to tell the difference. Like, you would not be able to see it. Where you would see it is when, oh, okay, she leaves and then goes and picks up kids, and then he leaves and he goes and fights in a cage for another hour for the day. Right? That would be the only difference. But if you looked at their training program, if you looked at their nutrition, their recovery, you would not be able to tell the difference with actual athletes or even non-athletes, but people that have a specific hard date. So we have a wedding we're trying to get ready for, or a big thing at our work event, or whatever the case is. Then we start to get more precise. We start to take more risks. We progress faster because we have targets and dates. But the programs themselves, it's the same philosophy. It's the same exact thing we're trying to solve for. With athletes, you do it athlete specific stuff. You hit golf balls. You practice your sport. Great. We're more aggressive because we have timelines. There's direct payouts. Our body is what we're making our money for, where other people it's not. So those things are obvious, but the philosophy, the problems we're trying to solve, like I said, are the exact same. It's just we're willing to take more risks because we have to go on and do things faster with an athlete.
Okay, well, if we look at this has I love when you've said this in multiple podcasts. You've talked about intelligent programming. And I feel like I always say this, and people will always come to me and say, well, what's intelligent programming? What
Yeah,
does that look like? And what does that mean for you?
that's a really great question. Thank you for that. Nobody ever asked that. So
Oh, good.
awesome. It means things like you didn't choose your exercise because that's an exercise that looked cool on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's not an intelligent choice. You chose your exercise because you thought about what the pros and cons of that exercise were. You thought about how that was organized throughout your workout, how that laid on that week, how that laid on the month before, and how that laid on the month after, and even past that. A really good coach is thinking about all that stuff. So I'm not picking the exercise, the order, the volume, the intensity, because me as a trainer or coach, that worked for me. I'm not picking any of those things because I saw somebody else famous do them or I heard about that technique in a seminar. That is not an intelligently designed program. It might work. And if you are the DIY person and you're running your own programs, even though you actually work in finance or something, fine. And you're just trying to hear things, you're trying to get ideas, cool. I'm not calling you stupid, but I'm saying that's also not intelligently designed. And so
Yeah.
what we want to pay attention to are all those factors. We get this a lot when I rarely post clips of me working out because like, it doesn't matter. It's not my like filming myself training is just like very weird. But nonetheless, anytime I do, people are like, "Oh, what's the program?" And I'm like, "It doesn't matter. It has no bearing on. You should never look at the exercise I'm doing. I have a coach that I pay, and
Yeah.
he is thinking about everything. And so whether I'm doing, for example, I was doing some rowing yesterday, and there was a friend of mine was here, and he's like, "Why is your foot in this position over there? Is that better?" And I'm like, "No, it's not better." But for some reason, my coach wanted my foot over there this time. We don't normally do it that way, but he's thinking about what other joints we're working today, in what order. Again, what have we been working on? What else is coming up this week? What have we been just working on the past couple of months? And now he's either trying to add more stress to a particular part of my body or he's trying to remove it because something else is coming that he wants to avoid. So that is what we mean when we say intelligently designed. It is not just happenstance, it's not thrown together. It's not good because it felt great or I had a better burn or somebody famous or that looks physically great wrote about it. Intelligence is all those other things.
Okay, so if you look at a programming year, so I try to get women to look at least, a few months at a time. So we're not just like jumping from program to program or like you're doing Orange Theory this month and then the next month you're doing some YouTube and then you come to me for a month. If you look at a well-designed program over a year, what are the key components that you would have? And let's just talk about a midlife woman or male, but I don't train men. So a
Yeah.
midlife person, what does that look like over a calendar year for the average person that's like, I just want to get fit and have some longevity benefits and I want to feel good in my body.
Yeah, it actually doesn't matter if you did this as a male example or a female example.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't matter at all because the answer would be the same. It is thinking about specificity versus variation. That's ultimately what we're coming down to. The more specific you are, the faster you get to a certain place. So if I said, "Hey, I need you to leave your house and go to Walmart right now," and you pulled up a map and you're like, "What the hell's the closest Walmart?" and then you followed the exact right path there, that would be the fastest way to get you there. If I left your house and said, "Go to Walmart," and I didn't give you a map and you didn't know where it was, and you kept driving, you would eventually get there, right? It might take
Yeah.
you literally years or it could take you minutes. Who knows? So specificity gets us to our goal the fastest path. However, if I were to drive that exact same route every single day, well, you can see how this analogy extends, right? That actually creates limitations. It creates potential for overuse. And the tires wear down and the road starts to get worn down and so on and so forth. So if I'm doing the opposite and if I'm just going in random directions every day, it can be very wasteful and it can be burning a lot of energy and time and getting literally nowhere. And so the key to planning a year is thinking about that. How specific do I want to be for how long? How do I balance that out with variation so that I'm getting the best of both, actually getting something done, specificity, and minimizing overuse slash making sure I'm not working on one or two things only when I should have a more well-rounded program across months and years. You don't have to be well-rounded for 6 weeks or even
Yeah.
6 months. but you have to be well rounded for 6 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If not, you're going to get very limited results, or it's going to be body parts or movement styles or energy systems or connection pieces that are going to get bad is maybe an aggressive term, but they're going to become suboptimal, or they're going to get inefficient, or what the case is. So with an athlete, we need a higher level of specificity. With a non-athlete, again, male or female, doesn't matter. You want to probably head towards a little more variation, because the average person on aggregate wants to be able to do multiple different things, or rather, they don't want to be limited per se. They don't want to have to be like, oh, I can't play basketball because I know that's going to hurt. It's like, okay, you want to be able to just do things and not hurt and pay the consequences for it. Where an athlete would say, I'm fine being really, really slow. I just have to be able to run for 6 hours. Oh, okay, great. So you're willing to give up some normal thing where the average person would be like, I don't want to look like that. Okay, fine. So we're going to be more varied. So that's the biggest thing I think to a year-long program, is considering that specificity versus variation
How
balance.
do you recommend for your clients? Do you look at it in a year, or do you do 12 weeks at a time, or
We do day, week, month, quarter, year, decade, and many decades. That is the entire roadmap for every client, whether they start with us at 25 years old or 65 years old. We have that plan. And so the one that jumps out the most is something like muscle imbalances and pain. So if we were to get that 45-year-old female to come in, and we get these all the time, the very first question I'm going to ask them is, I don't care at all about your body fat or your VO2 max or any of your other goals. Where are we at with muscle quality and joint pain? Why? Why?
Mhm.
Because I'm thinking 60 years down the road. I'm not a 6 week transformation coach. I don't post pre and post pictures. I don't care none about that. What I'm looking at is saying, even if you leave me after 6 months, you're going to leave here set up way better for the next 60 years, or at least 6 years, or at minimum 6 months. Like, being realistic, I can't control what's going to happen 60 years from now, right? I don't legitimately mean that, but conceptually is what we're trying to get
Yeah.
at, right? And so the framework should be established so that we can continue to have healthy practices for as long as humanly possible. So for that 45-year-old woman, I'm going to be thinking about that question. Where is our joint health? Where is our muscle quality? Do you move reasonably well? I don't need you to be a professional athlete, but I can't have huge movement limitations, because you might change the exercises you like 10 years from now, or something else might come up. And now that will be a limitation. At 45, you're still super pliable, and I got loads of time. Give me a year. What? Give me a year. We're going to go and we're going to find movement asymmetries. Not every single little one, that doesn't matter, but huge ones, glaring ones, other problems. And we want to rebuild foundation. Then we can come back and optimize. You like to be good at the deadlift. Great. You want to be great at, don't care if it's a physique goal, if it's a performance goal, whatever. We can deal with that later. The opposite case would be if you come in, you're 45, and it's like, hey, you move pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's like good enough. No real pain, no huge limitations. Okay, do you want to, what do we want to look at? Well, what is our biggest weakness? None. Everything's pretty well balanced. All right, fine. Is there something you'd like to train for? And then we're going down that algorithm. Yes, okay, great. We're going to head towards that. No, okay, great. Well, this is what I think we should do. But that is our fundamental thing. So we always want to make sure that before we start hitting the accelerator and putting our foot in the gas, that we make sure that our other foot's not on the brake and causing excessive breakdown and slowing and things like that first. So that is, again, the example I gave was for a 45-year-old, but that is how we start everybody, because we see a bunch of 22-year-olds who can't move at all either. It's not just old people, it's not just women, it's not just menopause. Like, it's just some people are in a better spot and others in a worse spot. And we take everybody with exactly where they are at.
So this is where it gets really tricky, because if you have someone come in and I see it all the time. I mean, I sell online programs, but it's like, yeah, I want to do, I want to jump from here. I haven't been doing anything to here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on, slow, like let's rewind, rewind, rewind. And no one, it's kind of hard. I feel like a lot of women are kind of picking up on it now. But you have to start with that foundation and be able to move well with body weight before you go to loading and then all of that. But it's kind of a hard conversation when when they want to just be like, "No, I want to do this." Doesn't it doesn't work that way. How long would it take for you for a beginner person to even get them into
Yeah, I get the point. What you asked me was what would be the best for the client. What you didn't
yeah.
ask me is what's the best business model, right? Because like what I do is a terrible business model. Like I do not optimize for client retention. I don't have to make my living on that type of stuff. So this is a very fair point. You're absolutely right. You have to show results very quickly if clients leave, if this is what your livelihood is on. But that said, we have never had a hard time seeing immediate noticeable results in 2 weeks, 30 days at minimum, right? If somebody has a little bit of a tight shoulder, you could probably get it untight really quickly. And so it's just the framework can be there of us saying, hey, we're doing this big thing, but they will start to feel something different really, really fast. If you need to see changes in body composition or something like that, then you can just pull some calories real fast. Okay, great. You'll start to see the scale move, but the reality of it is, you know what you're really doing, which is saying, okay, we're setting up there. The second thing I'll tell you, and this is what I've taught every one of my students for over a decade, is lie to your clients. Lie.
I didn't see that
Whatever.
coming.
What I really mean is this: you don't have your clients don't necessarily need to know your entire philosophy like they have a master's degree in exercise physiology.
Mhm.
Sometimes if we over explain, we kill motivation with information. So you can know exactly what you're doing, and you can be really looking at this like 6 month rebuild thing. But if they come in going, I don't care about any of that, like I just need to look good in the next 5 weeks, you can go, okay, well, do you trust me? Yeah, you trust me? All right, here's the plan. We're going. Same exact plan you're going to do anyways. You're not literally lying to them, and you're not going to like bait and switch
Yeah.
them. I'm not advocating for that. But you don't have to necessarily be like, no, 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 we shouldn't do that. We should do this. If you say, yes, your goals were A, B, and C, I heard you, right? That's what you want.
Mhm.
Yep, got it. And this is what you want. I'm hearing you, all that. Do you trust me on this is how we're going to get there? Yeah. Then we're off and running. And you may have to dose them with a little bit of, we always do this like at the end of the training program. Um, the last exercise of the day is dealer choice. So somebody comes in being like, oh, I want bigger glutes, Great. And you go, yeah, but really we got to work on your neck and your foot and your shoulder. And all you give them is foot and neck and shoulder exercises. And they literally don't use their glutes at all for 6 months. They're gone. They're gone
They're
in the first
pissed.
30
Yeah.
days. So fine. Do all the things you know are real. And then the last workout of the day, let them do 1,000 hip thrusts until they can't walk. Fine. Like you're not hurting anything there. They walk out going, I told her I wanted to work on my glutes. I left feeling my glutes. We're all winning here. But that doesn't mean
Yeah.
you have to necessarily do a glute specific workout 6 days a week and do nothing else the entire time. So when I say lie, like that's really what I mean is they don't necessarily know. If you ignore it entirely, you're going to have problems. But if they come in going, I want to work on my biceps, like give them some biceps work. But you, as a very educated coach, should be able to go, okay, I know how I can do that while still keeping that shoulder out of danger because I know that that shoulder is a problem. So I'm going to modify the type of exercise we choose. I'm going to modify the style, the loading pattern, the tempo. That'll keep the shoulder healthy, but they'll still feel like we're getting the biceps, and we kind of are. That's why exercise is a science, right? This is not a weekend certification thing because you have to understand anatomy. You have to understand physiology to be really good, to be able to do stuff like that where you can still hear the client, actually try to meet their demand, but then still really be doing what's the best for them down the road.
So, do you work in all rep ranges?
Yeah, of course.
And is there any absolutes in fitness?
Very few.
Very
Very
few.
few.
So really, when you look at a well-rounded program, that's vacillating between all different rep ranges. You wouldn't just keep somebody in one rep range all the time.
No, this is why it is impossible for me or anybody else to just look at a random person's program and tell them if it's good or bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. And this is actually when I hate people do those stupid ass reaction videos and stuff on social media. Like, you have no idea the needs evaluation here. You have no idea the client history, their access, what they want, what they don't like, all like the thousand things that go into making a good program. If I'm just literally seeing the numbers, to your point, on a paper, I have no idea. I don't know what they just did 6 months before, what they're going to do in the next phase. So there's very few programs I could ever look at and be like, that sucks. Like, yeah, you'd have a 99% pass rate of me going, oh, that could be good. I don't know what the situation is. I have no idea. Is this a 12-year-old or 94-year-old or like? Well, I have no idea. Even if you gave me some information, I still would need to know so many more things. And you guys probably deal with this too. But this is also why when somebody like DMs me this stuff, I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I can't answer that. I have no idea what you should
Yeah.
do when you gave me like a paragraph of information. Like, I need way more to be able to get it. So yeah, no, you couldn't ever look at a thing. Um, Mistakes you could make is if like this is your training program you do, and that's all you ever do. Then we could make some answers saying, okay, you might be a little bit suboptimal, but yeah, we will use anything from 1 repetition per set to 100 plus, and everything in between.
Yeah. Okay, so if you had just like a basic, obviously this would be individual, but if we're looking kind of scoping out and saying for an average person that's midlife that has all these other additional stressors on that, are happening in their life and they only have say 5 hours a week, would you allot, a couple to strength training, a couple to aerobic? What would that look like if they
Yeah.
didn't have a preference and they're just like, again, longevity and, that's kind of my goal.
Yep, understood. If How many days a week do we got? You got five
Let's
hours.
say
How many days?
let's say 5.
Five. Okay.
An hour a day.
It's easy money then. Super easy layup, right? Most people were always hearing like, yeah, 2 to 3 at most, 45 minutes each session. That's harder. Okay, let's say you have 5 days a week. Well, think about it this way. I would say at minimum, I want you doing strength training, whole body strength training twice a week. Let's just say, for the example, we're going to do. What do you think? You want to work out every Monday through Friday, or do you want to take a break and do like a Monday midweek break and then one weekend session?
Yeah, okay. Let's do that.
All right. So let's say we're going to train Monday and Tuesday, take Wednesday off, train Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Perfect.
All right. Monday, Thursday, we're going to lift weights, whole body. That gives us plenty of time to recover all of our muscles. We're going to do complex movements. This doesn't mean complicated ones. We mean multiple body parts moving at once, probably multiple steps. So we're not just going to do like a leg press. We could do that, but we would rather do something that involves multiple steps. And so we're getting kinetic chains moving. So our right knee gets integrated with our left shoulder, and we have movement patterns being established. We're still going to load it. We're still going to heavy, all those things. We'll probably select 1 to 2 exercises on both of those days that are really funny looking. And this is your spider stretches and just like weird stuff where you have multiple weird positions that you're in to keep us limber, to keep us mobile, and keep us connected there. Combination movements, 2 of those. Then we'll probably pick 2 to 4 primary lifts. This could be a leg press. This could be a bent row. It could be single or a single arm or single leg or unilateral, bilateral. It could be complicated or very straightforward. It could be a machine bench if we need it to be that. No big deal. Then we will probably finish on 1 to 3 exercises that are closer to what we just got done talking about. What's the client like the most? You really want to focus on your shoulders? Got it. Let's do some shoulder burnout stuff. Or we have some known weakness or limitations, so on and so forth. Those are going to be 45-minute workouts. You got a couple things done. We hit multiple body parts. We hit big stuff. We hit isolation stuff. We hit client stuff that they want. We hit stuff that we want them to do as their coach. And we hit kind of multiple repetition ranges. We're probably going to do those first couple of exercises in the 15 to 20 repetition ranges. The primary exercises, the bigger ones in the middle, we're going to be doing 6 to 12 repetitions per set, kind of as heavy as we can. And then we might finish with 25 to 30 repetitions per set in those last ones, something even higher than that. Both of those the same day. So we got some strength stuff in there. We got some muscular endurance. We got some hypertrophy stuff in there. Not an overload of any of it. They're probably not going to get hurt with any of that because we're not doing enough load or volume on any individual body part, but it's enough to drive stimulation and adaptation. That's Monday, Thursday. Tuesday, let's just say, for example, we're going to match that with some longer duration steady state. So this is going to be something zone don't care, whatever, right? If
There's a
you want
lot
to
of
walk,
strong feelings out there on the
oh my
zones.
God, like, geez, relax in your zones. Like, who cares? You want to do 25 minutes plus, ideally closer to 30 to 40. It doesn't have to be truly steady state, right? But it is something that you can move at. So you want to take a Peloton class, maybe not peg it all the way, or you want to take a run or a swim or something that you can move. We want to think about this is no breaks, but we're also not trying to go maximum effort here either. That's going to give us a good amount of recovery. Wednesday, we're off. We're feeling fine. Thursday, we're going to, actually, we're going to switch that. We're going to make that Tuesday actually a hard day. That's going to be a higher intensity interval day. That could be whatever protocol program you want, assault bike, sprints, take the Peloton class, Orange Theory, don't care, whatever it is. Ideally, this is cardiovascularly driven, not weights driven, right? Because we lifted pretty hard on Monday, but we're going to get our heart rate all the way up and back down. If you want to go 30 on, 30 off, you want to go Tabatas, like any combinations, don't really care. Should be a shorter and sweeter session, but we're doing that because we have Wednesday off. We're beat up pretty good.
Yeah.
Cardiovascular, neurological system, tissue needs a break. We're going to come back on Thursday then, hit our second lift. It's going to be just like Mondays. Okay, no big deal. Friday, we'll hit that lower intensity session that I just described because it'll be a little bit of a recovery. And then we got plenty of juice left on Saturday. And now we have freedom to do whatever we want to do. You want to hit another lift? Cool. We're fine because we got Sunday off. You want to hit another interval session? Awesome. You want to hit another lower intensity, longer duration? Well, we got juice left for whatever you want to do. If you want to have fun, you want to play a sport. Oh, this is when you play your paddleball or your pickleball. Great. Or you like to go play tennis. Or awesome. You like to pick up basketball. Like we have loads of things we can play with here. Or if your jam is the group fitness class and you know it's going to be weights and it's going to be cardio and it's going to be Pilates, like fine. We're totally good here because we're plenty recovered and we have time that's not going to mess with our following session. So 5 day a week off the cuff for that with that information might look something like that.
Perfect. So let's go into sleep and recovery. So sleep at this age freaking sucks for for most for a lot of reasons. But if we're not getting adequate sleep, how does that play into what we just recommended and recovery? And would you forego a session for, say, like a sauna or a cold bath or whatever, or would you kind of stick to the plan?
Yeah, we have to know the goal. We have to know the phase that we're in because the answer is either one, right? Sometimes our answer is suck it up and like get through it, don't care. Sometimes it's be smart, right? This is one of the hard parts about that piece of advice is like, hey, be smart, listen to your body. We're like, but when, when do I listen and when do I tell it to shut up? Like, we don't really know. This is why we have to have that bigger framework. If I know, for example, that this quarter is insanely difficult for you at work, you're recording loads of podcasts, you're launching a thing, blah, 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 then we might go, hey, this quarter is really at its highest level of maintenance quarter, physically. So when we get to that decision on that random Saturday, we already know in our brain, juice is not here because blah, blah, blah happened at work. I'm switching it out to recovery session. If it's the opposite, and we go, hey, last quarter was a maintenance quarter. This quarter, work never gets easy. It's never easier, but this is the quarter we decided already. We're going to push it. I need you to get after it. You had last quarter to recover. No skipping it this time. This is when we get after it. But if we don't have those decisions in mind ahead of time, we're just guessing always. And life just continues to roll. This is where being an athlete makes things easier because you have in season, out of season, postseason. We know those phases. We need to take the same approach as humans. So I use something that my dear friend Kenny Kane came up with, and it's called the quadrant system. And so we ask all of our clients to go through the quadrant and we reassess it every quarter, sometimes every month, sometimes more frequent, less frequent. But the quadrant system says you have 10 total points, 10. And we're going to spread those 10 across 4 categories. So those 4 categories are category 1, your business, professional life, vocation, whatever it means that. Number 2 is your family. Number 3 is your physical health. And number 4 is your recovery. All right. So again, people define these things different. So your recovery doesn't necessarily have to mean sauna, cold plunge. It could mean sleep. It could be spending more time with friends. It could be whatever like really recovers you. Family could be dating, could be your kids, could be like conceptually put whatever into whatever bucket makes actual sense for you. So you got 10 total points. So here's what we ask is it okay, let's start with business professional. If that is 5 out of 10, great. We have 5 points left to spread across your relationships, recovery, and your own personal health. Okay, great. Well, if you're a woman, you're by default going to put your personal health dead fucking last. Always. Right? Like you're going to be dead last and recovery is going to be a 0. So you're going to be like 5 to kids. And I'm going to be like, nope. It's not a negotiable. Like it's not possible. We cannot do that. We can't put you there. If you just had a kid a week ago, then great. You are at a 0, basically. You shouldn't be, but that's what you're going to make the decision, right? We still would say, I don't care. There's not a scenario you can put in front of me where I would say, it is okay for you, mom, to put yourself at 0. It's not because we just know where that story ends. It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
We have to keep you at some level. The rule of thumb we have here is personal health is at a minimum ever 2, and recovery can only ever be half as much at the minimum, not the maximum, but the minimum of your personal training. So if your personal physical health is at a 4, we can't do recovery to 1. It's not going to work. This is the problem. So that's the algorithm we have to run. So when we ask that, then we have accountability marks. So we say, okay, we decided this quarter business is at a 6. You got blah, blah, blah going on. Fine. We're going to be at a, I'm not going to ignore my kids, so keep them at a 2. Great. Well, now 6 plus 2 is 8. We got 2 left.
Yeah.
We're going to go 1-on-1. You have to do equal recovery to equal training. You have to.
Yeah.
There's no points left. You can't go 2-0. You're not going to make it through the quarter. You're going to end up dumping on your personal health. That's what's going to happen. A male, it's going to end up being dumping on the kids. Like kids, family go to 0. They keep their training. Like that's just, no offense, but that's just generally what happens, right?
Yeah.
You're going to prioritize. Everybody's different. I know, don't sue me, but you get the point, right?
We get it.
So we're having those, that's the conversation we're having. We're saying unacceptable. We have to be here. And then every week we hold you accountable to that. Like you promised me you take recovery into a 1. What have you done this week? You've done 0 actions for recovery. It's been another week. You've promised me 1. That's 2 straight. It's been 3 straight weeks. Like you're at a 0, 0, 0, but we have some accountability. We have something there. And we say, what have you done? You read your book this week? Did you, whatever the thing is that you like recover with physically, emotionally, spiritually, like don't really care. Some intentional action that is at least half of the resource demands, energy, time, money, whatever resource is for you as your own physical, personal health, and that reflects on there. So that is the system we have. So when we have those really hard decisions, you're traveling, plane got delayed. Oh my gosh, whatever, I had to go pick up kids early at school and I don't have time for that. The decision's been made already. Well, if I got time for one of the 3 things I was going to do today, I already know I'm going to get my interval session in, or I'm going to get my breathwork session in, or I'm going to get my whatever in. You know the answer because we've already prioritized our system. And then to the very beginning of your conversation, just like we periodized our training over the year, we do the same thing with this. So we say this phase right now, we know the choice is get your intervals in. Next phase though, you committed to recovery. Now we're going to prioritize that or whatever the other thing is. So for our highest performers, pro athletes or our executives or other folks, that's the system we use.
Okay, so let's move on to fat loss because I've met very few women that don't come and they're like, I want to lose weight. And I don't know why it's not, and why it's so much harder at this age. Well, I can tell you why. There's 900 other things running in your life, but it's really hard because half of the time when they come in, they're like desperate. They're fed up and they're just like, help me. I want to lose weight. How does that play into everything else that we've talked about and that programming? Is it harder for someone midlife to lose weight than someone, maybe a teenager? Is it the same? What does that look like?
Yeah, of course. We would be silly to think that somebody 40 years old is going to have the same ease of losing body fat as a 16-year-old, right? It's just like it doesn't happen. So there is an age component, absolutely. There is obviously with females, we've got midlife menopause to contend with
Yeah.
too. There's a lot to say on that topic. There is a lot of unnecessary fear mongering that happens here, and there's a lot of thinking that there is some unique physiology that is completely foreign that we've never learned. But at the same time, we certainly need more information here. There's no question. Abby is probably great for this stuff. But yeah, things change. What you want to pay attention to here, I think, the most helpful thing we can say, it's about the individual.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is if somebody comes to me that says, oh my gosh, I'm doing the exact same things I was doing for the last 10 years, and now I'm put on 5 pounds of clear fat right on my stomach that's never been there before. I believe them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also not going to program every female that ever comes into our program like all of a sudden they've got these perimenopause symptoms or something special happened in their body, and then we have to do everything different because they're now 44 years old.
Yeah.
That I think is a disservice because that's not objectively true. And so if somebody is saying, and I would say the same thing if it's a man. If it's a man comes in and says, okay, it's about the individual. If they think if something is happening, then it's happening. It's real. We believe them and we treat them like the individual person. And so what that means is that fat loss approach, you got to find what works for them. Not categorically. Not all women at this age should be doing this. This I think is where we're having really problems with this field in particular in terms of scientific communication.
Yeah.
You're going to get way more clicks if you post stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's really unfair to most women to be like, if you're this age, do this, or you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
not
no,
healthy.
it's
That's what's causing the confusion and the frustration.
yeah. I mean, and the hard thing is the boring stuff of you got to see what works for you. This might work for somebody. This might work for someone else. Um, it's harder to have somebody take that information because they want to be told exactly what to do, and that just isn't how it works.
Yeah, so we can help that person. I'm sympathetic to that, right? Number one, this is why hiring a single coach is a good idea, if you can.
Yeah.
Because then that person's not over here going, okay, well, I got my dietitian or writing my training program or my nutrition program. Then I have my strength coach or my personal trainer running that. And I have somebody else and I have my concierge doc. And we're just like, okay, nobody's going to win here because they're all probably, all of them might work, but their systems are a little bit different. And so you're conflicting the entire thing. Go with one system. Go with one system. Be consistent and give it several months. Right? If you're having huge negative reactions immediately, okay, stop. But if you're trying, you get really excited about low carb. Great. Give it some time. Don't give it 30 days. You're not going to really see what it can possibly do. Give it 3 or 4 months. If you're going to go away from that, go low fat, higher carb. Same thing, right? If you're going to try intermittent fasting, fine, do whatever. You're going to try fine. All of these probably have the equal chance to work if your adherence is the same, if your effort is the same. Now, it is possible you might find one that just clicks with your system really well. Awesome. But even if that's not the case, if you start hopping every 3 or 4 weeks, you're very, very likely to find anything that works. So you might miss something that would have worked had you been a little more diligent to it. So for that person who's like, I can't afford to hire a coach, I'm doing this whole thing on my own, and there's so much conflicting information. I hope my message says this. It's very unlikely that there's one magical solution out there that you have to do.
Yeah.
Extremely unlikely. So pick one thing, be good with it, stick to it, try it. If it doesn't work, move on. But I don't want that thing in the back of your head giving you terror all the time, going like, oh my God, like there's probably something out there that's perfect for me, and I don't know what it is. It's very unlikely
Yeah.
that exists. Extremely
Yeah.
unlikely. So pick anything that's based in evidence from a nutrition standpoint, from a training standpoint, from whatever. Be consistent, give it good effort, and then give yourself some grace and give yourself some time. If you do that, you're more likely to see something work. And if that doesn't work, it's still okay. You tried. Like that's the best you can do here. And don't worry too much about what else is out there.
So if we look at the the intersection of the science, like the research that we have access to, and then where coaching comes into that. Because, like a study will come out tomorrow that will counter what we said here. And you may know that there's not a lot of differences in there. It's like, well, it all comes down to, this and that for the tempo changes. Like, do we just throw slow eccentrics out now that they work the same? Whatever. Where does that intersection meet, and how do you balance that with the science that you've done
Yeah.
yourself versus real life experience?
Okay. Really, so we'll answer this separately two ways. First, extremely unlikely that a single study will ever come out that fundamentally changes the basic principles of exercise, nutrition, and sleep, so on and so forth. So
Right.
that's number one. You don't throw whole fields out with one study. That does not happen. Not one meta-analysis, not anything else. It can shift our programming a little bit. It can inform us some more. But there's no chance that a study is going to come out and all of a sudden be like, oh, this style of training that we thought worked in the previous 60 years doesn't work at all, zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does not happen. And so for the average person, it is confusing. It feels like that. But trusted people in the industry know better than that. And so when you hear things like that, the first thing you can do as a consumer is just have a red flag go up. Say, okay, great. I mean, is this really rewiring the entire history of strength and conditioning? That's a
Yeah.
little aggressive. Probably not, right? So that's number one. Slow down on our interpretation of single studies or even 3 or 4 or 5. It's interpret with caution, move slower. The second thing we can do there is understanding the difference between what's called an is and an ought. This, I think, explains more scientific miscommunication than anything else. So, are you all familiar with the logic construct of is versus oughts?
No, enlighten us.
All right.
I mean, I think I know, but maybe I don't.
Logical fallacy, the is refers to known truth. In this context, the data,
Mhm.
right? The research, the science. Ought is a moral judgment. So I can say 3 plus 3 is 6. This is virtually inarguable. However, if I said something like, do you like 5 better or do you like 6 better? This is an ought, right? This is a moral judgment. This is a personal preference, right? I'm stretching the explanation here a little bit. Logisticians like back off on me a little bit. But you get the point here. Here's why I'm bringing this up. If you were to ask a scientist on a podcast, how much protein should the average person be eating? A scientist is likely to answer that based on an is. What do the data specifically say? If you asked a coach the exact same question, they're likely to answer with an ought.
Mm.
They're likely to say, oh, what should you do? And now they're thinking about context, experience, what's worked in their clients and their goals, what people follow through on more, what people fail on more. So they're making moral judgments based on context and practical relevance, where scientists generally tend to stick to the exact data. Does that make sense, that difference
Yeah.
is versus ought?
It's
Yeah. That's
So
great.
here's a very small word
probably
difference. If you ask me, Andy, what's the minimum amount of protein most people should be eating to stay healthy? I'm going to go to is.
Mhm.
If you ask me, Andy, how much protein do you recommend to your clients? Now you've asked me not.
Well, we want to
Yeah.
answer the answer to
We want
both.
both answers.
Hey, here's where it's confusing. Here you go. There's a lot of research on protein specifically. You're going to generally see something like 1.2 grams per kilogram
Mhm.
is the minimum number. And in fact, if you go higher than that, you're probably not conferring any health benefits to more protein than 1.2 grams per kilogram ish. If you go below that, you will start to see negative health consequences. But if you ask me how much protein I generally put my clients on, it's going to be almost double that. I like to see closer to 2.2 grams per kilogram or 1 gram per pound. So when people ask me, how much do you like, Andy? Or what do you do with your clients? I'm going to give them the ought
Mm.
because I'm thinking about the data, But then I'm also thinking about, well, my clients oftentimes train twice a day. My clients are also going to be controlling body composition. My clients will adhere to this better. The people I work with, and it's now all my moral judgment slash my experience and me trying to explain to you what I think your audience probably wants to hear, their context, right? So if you hear me on a different podcast, I will give a different answer to that same one because I'm thinking, okay, you got a mostly female audience here. What are their most likely to be their goals, their situations? Where if I was on a podcast talking about kids training, I'd give it different because I'm different goals, different assumptions, right?
Yeah.
Not all educators do that, right? Not all information consumers are differentiating between that. So it's like, man, I'm so confused in the protein. You have some experts over here saying it's way lower, and some it's way higher. We're actually generally not. But even the scientists and the coaches themselves don't realize that they're conflating is's and oughts in their own recommendations. So
Yeah.
that is how we stay away from it. So if you ask me to go back to the beginning, in this case, there is a minimum amount of protein that most humans should probably consume. Below that, you're increasing your chance of something bad happening. Above that, though, we don't have any good evidence to suggest you'll be in itself, because of that variable alone, any healthier. However, when it comes to practical application, I have personally found people do better, more likely to succeed if they go to that higher number. I think if we said everybody in the room and said that, very few people would actually disagree.
Yeah.
But it's not that level of communication we're happening on social media and a podcast to stand. So we're getting this confliction between is's and oughts.
Okay, I love that. And I love that when you pull back, there really isn't, like you said, somebody could get benefits from a variety of, a variety of programs, and it doesn't have to look one specific way,
No,
provided you put in effort.
yeah, I mean, it is true that there are such things as individual responders. No question, right? We have genetic profiles that are wildly different, and past experiences, and we live in different parts of the world, and different air quality and food, like all that's true. So you should be coaching the individual. Here's where research. I'll answer this right back on the previous one. This is an is and a not. Generally, science tells us what is true for most people most of the time in most situations. It can never inform you on what you ought to do with your individual client.
Yeah.
It can't do that. Science is not geared, it's changing actually, but the entire history of science, especially in this field, has never been geared towards giving you individual personal client recommendations. You have to take the data, the is, and say, what do we think is most likely to work and most people most of the time? And that's where we start. And then from there, you coach. You coach the individual. So by the time that story ends, your program might look very far from the quote unquote evidence base because you started there and it didn't work and it wasn't great. You eventually had to get to something squirrely. But that's still evidence based. That is the actual art of personal medicine or personal nutrition or personal coaching. That's how you get there. And that is how you can be evidence based. But again, I pull up that program on my phone from your client and I go, this girl doesn't know what she's doing at all. This isn't evidence based.
Where do you see the science going in the next, like over the next decade?
Yeah, I mean, as I just alluded to, personalized uh, health nutrition program stuff is becoming real. So we can actually start to do studies in this lane. Probably 10 years ago, people started doing away with group analyses and started including individual responses in scientific papers. That was a huge step forward. And here's what I mean. In the past, if we were to do a study, for example, we recently published a paper where we looked at 16-8, intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is you eat all your calories in an 8-hour window, you fast for 16. And we had men and women in this study, and we actually were different because we looked at maximal muscle growth and strength. This was not a weight loss study. This was people trying to get as strong as they possibly can, and they were in a caloric surplus, not caloric deficit. So what we want to know is if you're putting as many calories as possible in the system, does fasting help, harm, hurt, or have anything neutral? Okay, in doing that, What we would typically have done in the past is you would finish the entire study and you would summarize everybody into one number. Okay, so the group in the fasting increased their strength by 3%, and the group in the non fasting increased it by X%. Well, the reality of it is, as you all know from basic math, some people are going to respond by 25% and some people by 1%. And then all of a sudden you smash that together to get a group average. And does that really reflect what actually happened? And so a number of years ago, a bunch of us were just like, this is not fair. We need to report to people every single individual person in that study. And so you could look at it and go, okay, some people got really good, some people got really bad. And so the net result doesn't actually tell you much. What you want to see is if there was 10 people in the study, if 9 got better and 1 got worse, that's very different than if we smash that all together and we can say, well, on average, it didn't matter. It clearly did matter. 90% of people got better. Like, that's a very different thing. Where that is transitioned now, and by the way, I can go back and give you the answer to the intermittent fasting thing if you want, but where this is transitioned is the ability to say, okay, can we actually run individualized studies? For example, there was a great paper published in Cell a number of years ago where they did what we effectively do in our coaching program. But they came in and they said, we'll take microbiome analyses, we're going to take blood markers, we're going to look at sleep metrics, we're going to look at questionnaires, subjective questionnaires, we're going to take some strength performance measures. We're going to throw all that into a learning model. From that, we want to see if we can predict somebody's postprandial glucose response. In other words, can we see how you respond to glucose having no glucose testing at all? And in fact, the reality of it is it absolutely did with basically perfect accuracy. So what that was saying is, hey, we can actually start to model and progressively predict problems. We can run better prognoses. We can see things happening if we have enough individual data on that person. So rather than saying that person came in being like, oh, you're a 44-year-old Caucasian woman, I have no idea how your blood glucose is going to respond. With that information, I have nothing. But with all this biological information, I can tell you exactly what it's going to do without ever even directly testing it. That is precision nutrition. That is precision medicine. That paper is almost a decade old. So there's been an enormous amount of consumer products that are becoming available that are out there in coaching programs like ours, where we can do this stuff very seamlessly because we have 10 years of data and lots of experience and hundreds of clients and things like that. So no longer can people hide behind the idea of like, well, how you feeling today is like the only metric. It's probably the best one, to be clear, probably like the single best thing you could ever ask a client. But we can do much more things now because consumer level coaching at this style of precision is not just a fantasy anymore. It's not only a reality, but it is much the commonplace.
It's quite fascinating. So if we look at really quick, because I know we're almost out of time, if we look at biohacking. So I just went to this menopause conference and I walked away and was like, I don't know what just happened, but the biohacking recommendations were almost like overwhelming. And if they were
Sure.
overwhelming for someone that I don't
Pretty
know how
educated in
they
the space. Yeah.
like goes to the average consumer, the average female that's like, okay, Haley, what are you taking? Like, do I need to be doing this and this and this and this and all of these biohacking? Where are you with that? Are there any that you do yourself that you're like, this is everyone should be taking this?
I mean, you know my answer here. You can't put a single piece of technology in front of me that I will say, yeah, everyone should use this. Now, I'll throw myself under the bus here. So I don't want to pick on anybody else. I have a sleep company. I
Oh,
am financially incentivized to sell people sleep products. And there's not a single thing that we use in every single client there. Not one. Because sometimes those things work. And sometimes they actually make things worse. There's something called orthosomnia. Orthosomnia is a clinically induced insomnia in response to data obsession.
Wow.
We see this routinely. People can give themselves, I'll repeat, clinical insomnia because of obsession over specifically sleep trackers. I have a sleep company. I'm incentivized to sell you those
Yeah.
things. And I'm telling you right now, they can make your life. Now, we don't sell that at Absolute Rest, but you get the point.
yeah.
So there's not a single piece of technology I'll ever be like, you all should be using this. When you get to stuff like red light and PEMF, there is some science there. But do you need it? Well, that's an entirely separate question. This is an is versus an ought,
Yeah.
right? Now we have gone to way down the road of ought into going, well, hold on here. There are 1,000 things we can do that are more impactful than what you're jumping to. Even if you were like, most of my clients have literally unlimited money. I mean, basically unlimited money. They could buy everything in the world and they wouldn't even ask. They wouldn't even look at the invoice. Like, wouldn't even be on their radar. And we don't do it because it's not only the false problem with the biohacking space is like, well, there's no harm. There actually is. In fact, genetic testing is one of the worst. There are very clear data at this point. People take advice when they think it's based on their genetics far more seriously.
Yeah, I would
Okay. So when
imagine.
you're giving them bad advice, they're more likely to take it, which can cause actual problems, direct harm. So genetic testing for health optimization or wellness is absolutely atrocious. It's horrifically bad. And this is actually causing an enormous amount of problems because people are being more adherent to really bad advice. So we're seeing a whole cascade of clinical issues coming as a result of direct-to-consumer genetic testing. I could go on and on, but this space is really, really problematic. Now, if somebody spent $200 on a red light device, like you're not gonna fine,
Right.
whatever. But it's when it's like I only had 200 to spend, and I spent it on that, and then I expected to burn 20 pounds of fat.
Yeah.
That like those are now where we're like, okay, you are really harming people, not physically, but all the other ways that we're getting there. So all of these tools are fine. I have used every biohack with our clients you could ever think of when we need that. What problem are we solving? Why would this specifically help that problem? Then I'll go use anything. Like we have some clients that spend 7 figures a year on basically tools, and we will continue to, like literally. But because we have very specific data on certain things that we're trying to poke and prod and twig with, right? If you're a professional athlete on a $700 million contract, $1 million a year is nothing
Yeah.
because every small little movement, it matters, right? But if that's not you, if your starting place is buying a PEMF mat, then we're going to have problems and just expect to have an epic failure here.
So if someone asks
Yeah.
you what biomarkers or performance markers you should watch that really move the needle, you don't, there's not really things you recommend. You recommend it based on the individual.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's the big rocks, right? Let's not be over cute here. If you're not paying attention to mental health at all,
Yeah.
then that's going to be a problem. If you're not paying attention to physical health, if you're not paying attention to sleep, if you're not paying attention to something that represents your internal physiology. Again, I have conflicts of interest here. I have a sleep company. I think you should all test and use your sleep. I think you should all buy my sleep product, right? But I have a blood work company. We do blood work for high performance. I think blood work is very, very important. But the reality of it is exactly what I actually just said right before that. You can make a load of health progress without ever testing your blood. You can make a load of progress without ever testing your sleep. Those things can be helpful, but no one has to get any of them to make
Oh,
progress.
now I feel like I'm gonna go peruse all of the sleep
I know.
websites that you have because this midlife sleep, I'm telling you, is a doozy. It's a doozy. And I want to say that I never rely on any sleep aids. I wish I could say that, but I don't. But man, that's a whole other.
Well, so this is a thing. Perhaps a different time, different conversation. But the sleep field itself is one of. Well, to give you some context here. Globally, we're spending about 600 billion a year on sleep,
Wow.
and it's one of the few health metrics that is continually declining.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why?
Well, I can tell you a bunch of reasons why. Many of them being our world is different. Our world is
Oh.
physically brighter than it's ever been. Right? There's this cool thing called Sky. We actually just published a paper. You can go read it. It's totally free. We
Okay.
published a paper on the environmental factors that are influencing sleep in your bedroom. It's open access. We paid like $3,000 so that everyone can download it without any special like login or access stuff like that. We have a summary table in there that tells you exactly how much light to have, how to measure it, sound, odorants, smells, like all kinds of things like that. Every environmental factor, it's all free in that paper to democratize that as well. Our physical environment is different. You're also running companies via the internet, which means you're expected to be up at different hours because you can run a company with your employees across the country or world.
Yeah.
The world is more stimulating than it's ever been. You have direct access. There's like all these small reasons to big reasons. But the field of sleep medicine, the gold standard in sleep medicine is still the same as it was 50 years ago, technologically. Hasn't changed. Every other part of medicine has, except for sleep. So we are ignoring everything besides basically sleep apnea. It's the only thing people deal with. And it's very unlikely that you're dealing with sleep apnea right now. So there's a billion solutions for midlife. I cannot tell you how many perimenopausal women have come to Absolute Rest for sleep stuff. And like, we're not perfect, of course, but we're very good. There's 1,000 things you can do that are not just a CPAP machine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a lot of stuff you can do. In fact, we are actually we're doing the first ever study right now. This will perk you guys' ears. My student Zoe is about halfway through data collection on our study where we're looking at sleep across the entire menstrual cycle. Now, these are not perimodels. These are young, healthy, because we had to actually normalize that.
Yeah.
But we have ultra high fidelity testing, part of the technology we developed at Absolute Rest. So we can run full clinical sleep studies on women every single night from their home.
No way.
And so we match that with urine and blood markers. And so not only do we know the phase, we're directly confirming their cycle phase, and we are directly confirming hormonal status. So no just like, oh, it's a 28-day cycle and you're ovulating day 14. We will know the exact day you ovulated, what day you didn't. And if anything does change in your sleep, not from an Oura or a wearable or a questionnaire, from ultra high fidelity testing. And if it is relevant to your hormonal changes at all at the individual level, we'll be able to see that and know that. So we're actively collecting that and looking for more participants on that study. So we love these questions. We deal with it a lot. So yeah, we can help sleep for sure.
Okay. Well, there's a hell of a lot network.
Well, if any of you want to come check us out at Absolute Rest, and you're struggling with sleep, any of you ladies, we've seen you a lot.
I know.
So
you're going to see two of us, right? Okay, where can everyone find you?
All over the world, just everywhere. My face is on too many podcasts.
Okay, and you have your own podcast?
Yeah, we're actually about to start filming season 3 in a few weeks. It's called Perform. I only do like 10 or 12 episodes a year.
Awesome.
So seasons 1 and 2 are out. You can go check those out on all your providers. And it's Andy Galpin is just on all social media and websites. My website is just that. And then you can check out absoluterest.com.
Okay, I'm going there right now. Andy, thank you so much. I'm so glad that Abby introduced us and you said yes to this podcast. I was so thrilled, and this has been such a great conversation, so needed. And I love how spot on you are with what you recommend. So thank you for your expertise and your time today and for being on the BodyPod.
Thanks for letting me run my mouth a whole bunch, and it was fun being here.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and sharing the BodyPod with your friends.